It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. That's the start of this fabulous story, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Now what I thought I would do in this short video, I say short, I don't know how long it'll be, is take in the filming locations for the 1995 production, which was created by the BBC. I'm a big fan of the programme, I watch it frequently. Jennifer Ehle plays Elizabeth Bennet so well. And of course Colin Firth plays Darcy. We've got Luckington Manor just to my right, and that played the part of Longbourn. And St Mary's Church here behind me. And I've just spoken to the verger. She said, go in, you can go and visit all around. The house is actually private, so I can't go in there. Just dropped my specs. In the 1995 production, although I've just read to you the opening line, you know, it is universally acknowledged. Andrew Davies opens the show showing Bingley and Darcy riding across the countryside on horseback with Elizabeth watching on.
I wanted to emphasise the men in this story, especially Darcy himself, and didn't make it all a girly thing. So I started off with these men on great big horses kicking up the dirt and galloping into this area and creating a bit of a stir.
Here we see the opening scene with the Bennets coming out of the church and then walking down.
My dear Mr. Bennet, wonderful news! Netherfield Park is let at last!
Is it?
Yes, it is, for I have just had it from Mrs. Long.
Yeah, they walk up here and then round the corner into Longbourn.
For a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife.
Yes, he must indeed! And who better than one of our 5 girls?
Don't like filming people's houses. I'll give you another shot from the other side of the church. But the verger has said we can go into the church, and that is exciting because we get to see the church was used for the double wedding event as well. So many scenes filmed for Longbourn. That is Longbourn with a prettish sort of wilderness in the background. They've got a nice plaque telling us some of the history of the church, the tombs, MI6 chief who's buried here, but also this, look, Pride and Prejudice was filmed here. They don't mention Jennifer Ehle. Who doesn't love an obstinate, headstrong girl? I know I would like to find one. Anyway, let's go in here. Tell you what, it's a lot smaller in real life. So we would have had Jane and Bingley stood here, and Elizabeth and Darcy stood there. And you know you're in the right place because of the pillars and the light.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God and in the face of this congregation to join together this man and this woman, and this man and this woman in holy matrimony.
Plaque, Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Might take a picture of that. You've got some of the background scenes and the characters with their day coats, look, waiting for the action to be called. St Mary's Church, Luckington, acting as the church at Longbourn. How wonderful. And there's Longbourn in the background. And so the next location is Meryton, which was filmed in Laycock. Everybody films in Laycock, don't they? I might have to put my hat on. I'm getting windswept and interesting. This is Meryton, or what is also known as Laycock National Trust Village. Many, many period dramas are filmed here, but this is the Red Lion. And outside the Red Lion you get the night scene with the horse-drawn cart comes along. And Darcy and Bingley attend their first, what would it be, dance? We then get some daytime scenes where Mr. Collins and the girls are walking into Meryton, and you see them walk past this corner here, and as they walk around the corner, Lydia and Kitty spy some fine bonnets in the shop window here. Of course, it was all dressed for the film, so all of this would have been grass and dirt tracks for the horses. Anyway, they're looking in the window here, and across the road, just at that white Tudor building, they see Wickham and Denny standing.
Knew him since Friday. Isn't it nice? Look, there's Denny. Where? There, look. Who's that with him? I don't know. He's fearful handsome.
It looks so much smaller now. But you get the horses coming along with Darcy and Bingley, wondering why. Well, in fact, Elizabeth wondering why Wickham and Darcy are having those cold, steely stare looks at each other.
You are very kind, sir. I'm quite recovered, as you see.
Yes, I'm very glad to know it.
I hope you will still want to come to have tea with us, sir.
I shall be very happy to, Miss Bennet.
And of course, Darcy doesn't want anything to do with society here, does he? It's somewhat savage. Wow, the Red Lion. Now, just down here is Laycock Abbey, which has been used for things like Harry Potter, you know, with the courtyard scenes. But there's also a scene where Darcy interrupts Wickham, doesn't he? During the writing of the letter to Elizabeth, he's kind of recounting the story, and we get that one scene. So let's go in here and I'll see if I can find the exact location for the scene where Darcy is attending university and walking through the cloisters.
And hoped you would make the church his profession. But by then, George Wickham's habits were as dissolute as his manners were engaging.
Down the corridor. Guess who's behind this door? Will it be Wickham and a girl? Caught red-handed. Such was the character of Wickham. To apologise for the state of my hair, because I'm earmarked for some filming as a supporting artist, and production has said, do not cut your hair. And I don't actually know how many videos it's going to take and how long it's going to take me to do this complete video with all the different locations in terms of time, and it may well be that I'll have a haircut in the middle of it all. Okay, so that was Longbourn, St Mary's Church, Laycock Village and Laycock Abbey. Wonderful. What's next, I wonder? Let's find out. Behind me is Weston-super-Mare, which doubles as Ramsgate. This little area here would have been dressed. You'd have had the nets hanging here. And Darcy looks over and he sees down there Georgiana and Wickham. Can't actually get down to the location. This is so inconvenient. This is the right location because I've got the hillside at the back and there's the single standing rock out to sea. Anyway, Weston-super-Mare, acting as Ramsgate. Thither also went Mr. Wickham, undoubtedly by design. Right, let's go somewhere else. So I'm now at St. Paul's Church in Deptford, and actually Peckham High Street is just behind me. And you know Peckham High Street from Fools and Horses, right? Anyway, in the book, chapter 51, it starts by saying their sister's wedding day arrived. Jane and Elizabeth felt for her probably more than she felt for herself. And that's it. It then just goes on to talk about them arriving at the Bennet's house. But Andrew Davies gives us a different perspective because he allows us to see the angle from the men's point of view, Wickham, Darcy, the Gardiners, and expands on that. So the scene kind of opens, and look at that, you've got flats and everything. Cinematography is so cool. So they would have dressed the house to look like 1815, the Georgian period. And the carriage pulls up just here. Mr. Gardiner helps Lydia off, and they walk right past here, this very spot. Where is everybody, she asks. And then they walk into the church, which is actually closed, so I can't go in and show you, but they actually filmed the internal shots here as well.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here in the sight of God.
Mr. Wickham is to resign from the militia and go into a northern regiment. Happily, there are still some among his former friends who are willing to assist him in purchasing a commission.
Amazing. St. Paul's Church, Deptford. Lydia and Wickham were married here. And it happened. I got the old Barnet cut. So the filming production had said, do not cut your hair, we want to fashion it. And can you believe what happened? I went for the fitting, and it was a dinner jacket, bow tie, all the lot. And having had the dinner jacket fitted, the costume lady said, go around to hairdressing, let them sort your hair out. And I stood there, three ladies looking at me. We like your hair as it is. I'm like, no, no, no. I want you to cut my hair. I've been growing it long and I hate having my hair long because I don't have a lot of it. So it gets all wispy. And anyway, they left the hair. Production has finished. Did it myself, so it's a real mess. But production, and this is, you know, the irony of doing Pride and Prejudice with the 1995. It was Empire of Light. New Sam Mendes movie that's coming out. I think I can share it because it was in the local press. I filmed at Margate in the Dreamland Theatre, and the scene was the premiere of Chariots of Fire from 1981, and Colin Firth plays the theatre manager. So we get to sit in the auditorium, and he's giving us his speech over and over and over while they do the different camera angles. And Olivia Colman as well, the two of them. And there were two scenes, and I was like, if we can, that tree there, see that tree there? That's how close I was to Colin Firth. But we were professional, you know, as supporting artists are. You don't go charging up to them and say, oh, I saw you in Pride and Prejudice, I thought you were brilliant. Just don't do that. Anyway, so we carry on with the video, and I'm now at Lyme Park. Lizzie and the Gardiners have come up to Derbyshire for a tour, and they're sitting in the carriage, they're going through the grounds of Pemberley, and Lizzie says, do you think we'll see the house before it gets dark? And Mrs. Gardiner says, be patient. And then we get this scene. And Lizzie says, it's probably the most happily situated she's ever seen, something like that. Having stopped to admire the house just at the other side of the lake, the Gardiners and Lizzie continue round to the front of the house. in the carriage, and you see the carriage winding its way through the archway into the courtyard. Definitely worth a superimpose. Darcy's Pond, as the National Trust like to call it. Now, as Lizzie and the Gardners are taking in Lyme Park, just across the way there, Darcy arrives a day early and contemplates having a wee swim. Perches himself round about here, thinking, shall I go in the water? Shall I not go in the water? Sits down, starts disrobing. I won't give you the pleasure. And you have to think, what is going through his mind at this moment in time? Is he contemplating the unrequited love that he has for Lizzie?
You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you.
Is he contemplating the tedium of several evenings with the Bingley sisters?
Ah, very true. Damn tedious waste of an evening.
Or is he contemplating the fact that he's just had, a hard ride from wherever he's come and the horse is perched up between the two trees there? With Darcy, without Darcy, with Darcy, without Darcy. He then, in his bloomers and his shirt, dives right in. It actually looks, quite deep. But I wouldn't like to chance it myself. And of course, he didn't actually dive in. Stunt double dove in the water here. And Darcy, or Colin Firth, jumped in a swimming pool. Amazing. Darcy's Pond. So now having had the swim, he walks back across the meadow. You can't see the house, but the house is just somewhere there, and encounters Elizabeth, which we shall see in a moment. So Darcy's now out of the water. He's coming back to the house. Elizabeth and the Gardners are standing around here. They're coming down from the orangery. Lizzie's walking down the little hill here, and Darcy appears out of the mist there, and they have the conversation. And they walk off towards the house there. And Darcy's obviously gone off to get changed. Now formally attired, and still buckling himself up, Darcy makes his way down, and he's got to get out there. In fact, he walks that way, doesn't he? And he disappears out through the entrance, which is actually that entrance. And they have their conversation where he's introduced to Lizzie's friends. It's interesting, the dialogue. You can see she's trying to catch him out. This is my aunt, Mrs. Gardner, where Jane stayed recently in Cheapside, to get reaction from him. But it doesn't happen. Pleased to meet you. It's all turning here. And it's the old, do you care for fishing? Indeed I do, sir. Follow us down to the lake. My man will show you. They walk out here. Darcy and Mr. Gardner discussing the whole, there's going to be trout in the pond, and Mrs. Gardner and Elizabeth kind of expressing their astonishment of the change in the nature of Mr. Darcy, and Elizabeth can't think why it's happened. I love Mrs. Gardner's very kind of discreet. Can you not? But they then take a walk up through the path up there. So Darcy and Elizabeth walking together, the Gardners coming up behind, and they have the conversation that Darcy would like to introduce Elizabeth to his sister Georgiana, and she seems quite excited that, yeah, she would like to do that. And they walk up here, and I think this location in the storyline is where her opinion changes of him. Suddenly she's like seen a different side to Darcy. It could be that he's on his own territory. It's like, I'm home, I can be who I am, without any airs and graces. But they continue up, and the telling thing is, as they're departing, you know, Elizabeth and the gardeners are departing in the carriage. So let's track up there and just let me expand on that a little. They finally come up this staircase with the orangery behind them. They've walked up that footpath which leads up that direction, but filming what it is. So there are two telling things that happen here that I observe. They're getting into the carriage, and you see Darcy take Elizabeth's hand and help her up, and it's ever so slight, but there's a kind of thumb rubbing moment. Am I seeing things? I don't know. But then the carriage departs, and Darcy's kind of stood here watching, and however, I can't remember. And he's almost willing her to look back, because you can see the carriage going off, and it's what's going through his mind. If she looks back, she's interested. If she looks back, she's interested. Or to put it in the modern vernacular, she fancies the pants off me. Look back, look back, look back. And of course, she looks over her right shoulder and looks back at him. Yeah, getting so much. She fancies me. His chances are getting better. Okay, that's it. That's Lyme Park. See if I can take you to another location. I might see a few little things on the way out, but otherwise, oh no, tell you what, let's go down and look at the gift shop. I've been to Derbyshire on many occasions, and I've always wanted to find this location. This is Ramshaw Rocks, and Lizzie takes a holiday with her aunt and uncle, and they show her kind of the countryside, and we see Lizzie climbing up here, and I can almost hear Mrs. Gardner from down there. Let me get out of your way so you can see it. You see them clambering over the rocks at this section here, and she goes,
Elizabeth, be careful! How could I face your father if you took a fall?
how could I face your father? Now, you think she's standing on that rock, but she's actually standing on this. It's the way that cinematography works, because she wouldn't have been able to walk up on the edge there. Because if she was standing on that one, it's just too steep and narrow. But I'm going to walk up it. Be careful, Tudor. How could I face your father if you take a fall? Oh, this is amazing. Would you like to see it? Look at these rocks. Astonishing. So Elizabeth Bennet was looking out on the A53 as it drives down towards Buxton from Leek. And Mr. and Mrs. Gardner were coming across the rocks there, but you don't see the road. So that's Ramshaw Rocks, and it's not far from Longnaw. So let's go to Longnaw. I'll tell you all about it. Isn't this splendorous? Tiny little village of Longnaw in Derbyshire, which doubles as Lampton. Now I would imagine, if you can imagine a green by a smithy, there's probably a fine tree here where Darcy does horse chestnut collecting. But just up here is Chapel Street, which is the very narrow lane and actually looks quite Dickensian in its outlook, which is where the inn at Lampton was. And this is quite narrow, and you have to imagine Elizabeth walking down here, and there's a man on horse, and 2 scenes were filmed here. You've got Elizabeth walking down, and the maid comes out of the window just by the sign for the Red Bull. If you please, miss, 2 gentlemen and a lady are here waiting upon you in the parlour. Tell them I shall be with them directly. One of them is Mr. Darcy. Wow. And you get the scene where the gardeners, they've heard all the news of Lydia, and they're loading up the modest equipage with all their luggage, and they're off. Where are you staying? Oh, the inn at Lambton. There we go, Chapel Street, Longnaw. What 3 words location on the screen for you? I suppose if I come in the height of summer, I would have throngs of people coming through here. It's now a Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock. There's nobody here. These old Victorian cobblestones. How wonderful. I'm really glad also that they decided to film the Derbyshire scenes actually in Derbyshire. And of course they'd have had to, wouldn't they? Because people will watch it and say, well, hang on, you're filming that in Somerset. That's not some Derbyshire. This is National Trust property, Belton House. Isn't that glorious? And the way the sun's kind of basking down on it. Now, Belton's house played the part of Rosings Park, so the home of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. What I like about this and the 1995 adaptation is that the locations they selected would have represented the buildings in their day. I think that we're talking Georgian period, so what, the 1815, 1820, 1830s, whatever that period that Jane Austen wrote Pride and Prejudice to represent. Whereas you look at the Keira Knightley version, the place is already dilapidated, it's already old. And to me, that doesn't reflect how it would have looked in 1815. So I think they got the location wrong there. Anyway, Rosings Park, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, the very favourite place of Mr. Collins, where he receives the patronage and equally the condescension of Lady Catherine de Bourgh. So there are several locations for the filming here, notably when Lizzie comes to visit Charlotte Lucas, who is now Charlotte Collins, Mrs. Collins, and then obviously has dinner or dines here at Rosings Park. And we get the scene where they're walking and arriving, so we'll go and have a look at that. Darcy then comes along here when he has to compose his letter, and we see him walking towards the house. So there's a couple over there, don't know whether the camera's picking it up. We'll have a look there, and then we'll have a look at the room where he's kind of, you know, he's composed the letter and it's morning and he's looking out the window. So let's go and have a look at those locations. I think it's from this angle that we see Darcy walking towards the house, having had the altercation with Lizzie.
You are the last man in the world whom I could ever marry. Do you think that any consideration would tempt me?
On that, I may defend myself, something like that, the voiceover as he's walking towards the house. So we then get the cut from that scene where he's walking, and we see him walking up here, you know, cane, hat, straight into the house at this entrance. Oh, the deception of television. Let me show you. Because I'm not sure this is an open door anymore. It looks like a window, sash window. Maybe you could open the bottom. But the window, possibly this one, and any one of these windows here, we see him kind of looking out across the garden. And there's the garden. Isn't that magnificent? And that's the scene where we get Lizzie and Mr. Collins, William Lucas and his youngest daughter, what was her name? Can't remember. And Mrs. Collins, of course. So let's reenact that, shall we?
64 in all, 64, and I have it on good authority that the glazing alone originally cost in excess of £600.
And so we get the party walking up here. Mr. Collins is so excited to tell Lizzie that the windows, there are 64 of them, and cost in excess of £600, which actually in today's money is over £50,000. And then they walk through, and obviously then they're in. Oh, Lady Catherine de Bourgh, may we have lunch with you? We could probably play the piano in Mrs. What's-Her-Name's room where no one will disturb her. But yeah, they walk up here, they enter in and have their first lunch or dinner, have their first dinner date, and have lots and lots subsequently. Belton House, National Trust property in Lincolnshire, acting as Rosings Park. Rather splendid. It's too sunny not to wear the sunnies. Anyway, I'm at Old Ty Rectory, and this was Mr. Collins's house. And you get the modest equipage coming up here, and yeah, that's his house. I believe it's a bed and breakfast. Isn't that glorious? And of course it's from here that Darcy comes to make his proposal to Lizzie and storms out. Yeah, I think it's a bed and breakfast now. I'll put a little link somewhere just to show you kind of how much they charge. So if you're actually here and you want to visit, you could stay here and go around the rooms. I do wonder if they actually have, you know, the likes of me, Pride and Prejudice fans, coming along to see all their places. So, Netherfield is let at last. I've made it across the country. But if I was to stand over there and take the shot in this general direction, I'd get the shot of the walking party, the shooting party coming back across the field towards the house, and this is the view that they'd get. Now a lot has changed. 95, 2022, 27 years. So obviously the bushes have grown up over time, but doesn't that look majestic? And you'd have the carriages coming in. You know, when Mrs. Bennet and the two girls are coming to see Elizabeth and Jane, who have been here for a day or two. And also the night of the ball, if you may please, you shall name the day. And you see all of the carriages coming in. So, Netherfield Hall is let at last. Again, they've got to expect that people will come here, won't they, and look at their properties. I do sometimes think it's a bit of an imposition, you know, I was going to say traipsing, it's trespassing on personal property. Unless you've had an invite, you shouldn't really be going in there, should you? Okay, I am going to wrap up this video. Surprise, surprise. I've been at it for months, it seems, and that's quite right. I've started this back in, when was it? March, February or March, sometime like that. But because the locations have been scattered around the country, it's kind of difficult for me to just do it in one day. So, you know, I've had haircuts. I have actually washed the shirt and jumper. It's like the guy, you know, from Coast with the red jacket and the umbrella, Nicholas Crane. And he always wears the same outfit, regardless of what episode it's in. And I kind of thought I would do that. And so the only difference has been the hair being cut. So what have I missed? Sudbury Hall, I did go there, that's in Derbyshire. That was used for the internal shots of Pemberley. And there's some lovely scenes. If ever I got a chance to go there, I might do another supplementary video, but all the internal shots for Pemberley were filmed there. There are two halls, I can't remember their name, I'm going to put them up here. Now this first one was used for the home in London where Jane visits Caroline Bingley, and then this second one, again with the name, can't remember, it's been a long day, that was used for the internal shots of Netherfield. So when they had the ball and all that kind of stuff, that was shot at this place. I've had a lot of fun doing this one because it's, you know, kind of, I've had lots and lots of time to think and go through and just make sure that I've, you know, got all the locations right. So with all that effort, it's got to be worth a thumbs up, hasn't it? Give the video a like and subscribe, and I will see you in another video. There's bound to be another video, whether it's filming locations or something. Bye for now.